Afternoon. So it's the graveyard shift.
Yeah, thanks.
We've all just had lunch. Well, let me not say we've had lunch. I don't think we've had lunches yet. Dean and Nicola, thank you for joining me on stage. We're going to have what I think is going to be an interesting conversation. I actually like how it is phrased, learn to shave on someone else's face. So I've actually never thought of that, but
I was actually worried about that topic, that title, when you share that with me.
yeah.
I don't know what it holds for us in the next few minutes.
All right, so Dean, maybe just to kick off things, could you tell us more about Aurecon and the complexities around your organization from an HR perspective?
Thanks, Zuko. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really, really good to be here. I think, Zuko, from an Aurecon perspective, essentially Aurecon is a consulting engineering firm. Our core business is around design, engineering, advisory, and also we play in the infrastructure space. So just to put it in context, I think some of the iconic projects that our business is currently working on is around the structural design of the tallest tower in the world called the Calatrava Tower, which we're busy working on in Dubai. So the Calatrava Tower, just to put things into context, is going to be taller than the
Burj Khalifa.
It's going to be taller than the Burj Khalifa.
Wow.
So, and I'm proud to say that from a South African perspective, it is engineers, it is our advisory team from South Africa and Africa that are supporting this. And the other project that's one of our iconic projects is the Lusail Stadium in Qatar.
Yeah.
And that's in preparation for the World Cup, Football World Cup in 2022. So I think from that perspective, it's just setting the platform for a global business. So we are located in 4 regions: Africa, Australia, New Zealand, the Middle East, and of course Asia. We have at this point in time 7,500 employees located or represented in 27 offices. So yes, there are some complexities in terms of the geographical spread and the diversity within our business. But having said that, Zuko, I think one needs to also just leverage off those complexities. And so when I talk about complexities, I refer to elements of strategy, ensuring that the 7,500 people that are scattered throughout
The globe.
Throughout the globe, yes, throughout the globe, are aligned with strategy. And I think HR plays a fundamentally important role relative to ensuring that the strategy is not just not just information that's on a piece of paper, but it's executed. And so I think that it's necessary for us as HR people to partner intimately with our business, to understand their business and what it's about, and then executing strategy. I think the other thing that comes to mind when you talk about complexity is around disruption, and ensuring that us as an HR team are acutely aware of the potential disruptors that prevail, and how to deal with that. And how to deal with that then leads me into capability within our business. And I believe fundamentally important to execution of strategy, to dealing with elements of disruption, is to ensure that you have the right capability, the right people in your teams and in your organizations if you are going to successfully execute on strategy and deal with the disruption from a technological point of view.
Yeah. So in terms of the journey that you've embarked on, what were the key business drivers that led you to go into cloud technology?
Well, look, I think we got to a point back in 2015 where Aurecon as a global business acknowledged the fact that moving into the cloud was inevitable. It was just a matter of time, right? And then when I think about the drivers, the history of the business certainly dictates that having one HR platform was critical to the success of us as an organization, one of the successes as an organization. So let me just share with you briefly relative to Aurecon and to the business that we are now today. So essentially in 2009, we formed the business out of 5 heritage companies, split over two countries. That was Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. And so one of the huge drivers insofar as migrating to Workday is concerned is that we had 5 different businesses, 5 different HR platforms, and you can only imagine the chaos that's created. So ensuring that we have a single source of information, ensuring that we have one platform in terms of an HR integrated system was a huge driver insofar as Workday was concerned and the involvement in Workday. I think the other example that comes to mind relative to the driver question is around business growth. So yes, as an organization, we are at a mature state now relative to growth. And so that was a key driver for us. The other was around agility. I think agility also plays a huge role. We want to ensure that the processes within our business, the processes from an HR perspective, are streamlined, they are user-friendly, and employees fundamentally have an opportunity and they are empowered to access the system. Fourthly, for me, what comes to mind is the employee experience. Yeah. I think that has certainly contributed hugely insofar as the migration to Workday is concerned. As I said earlier on, it's that sense of empowerment, it's a sense of understanding. The system is pretty much user-friendly. And then finally, for me, it all aligns to strategic value. So when I think about the strategy of the business and what is it that we want to achieve, it certainly aligns itself to that strategic intent and the strategic value.
It certainly does speak to what we hear from most of our customers. There's an evolving workforce that you have to deal with. There is technology that's evolving at a rapid pace. Thirdly, there's consolidation, which you've alluded to, around the 5 entities that you have to bring into one. Yeah. So no, thanks for that. So Nicola, maybe you can come in here. It sounds like it started as there was the first decision to say, okay, what are we planning on embarking on? So the decision was that we go to the cloud, you find a solution, you identified a partner that you could work with. But certainly, deployment, this is where the rubber meets the tar.
Correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about the deployment within Aurecon?
Yeah, sure. So as soon as we received the green light in 2015, we got together a team of internal HR team members, some of our IT team members got together. We partnered with Workday consultants based in Melbourne, and we also involved a lot of stakeholders from the business, key influencers that we ultimately also used during the change management process. So where we need to start off with is to actually align all our policies globally, because you can just imagine having 27 different countries' legislation also impacting on your policies. So that was the first key element, is to ensure consistency globally on our policies and also our processes, because we had to design a system that could suit all the countries and all the employees globally. So it took 11 months after transferring almost 1.2 million data points from the legacy systems onto Workday. We went live on the 30th of November across all 27 countries, and 7,000 employees were able to access Workday that day. Having said that, it did come with its challenges, because as you can imagine...
That's impressive user adoption, I must say.
Correct, yeah. So I must say, throughout the first week, I think almost 70% of staff members actually went into Workday because we asked them to verify their details, for example, just those basic HR steps in the process. So we took a phased approach. So the initial rollout was across all the different countries, but we rolled out the HR core. So that involves the staffing modules, the skills and experience, which was that was one of the benefits that we immediately derived from actually going to Workday. Limited reporting functionality, and then integration with some of our rest of the systems that we have, our finance system as well as with payroll. The second phase was the year thereafter, so it's 2016, where our Australia and Asia business rolled out the absence and time off, followed by the ADP integration, so to their payroll systems. And then later this month, we will go live with recruitment and onboarding, so that's quite exciting. And then next year, during phase 4, we will do Africa leave and time off, and then also Workday learning. So there's quite a bit that happened from 2015 till date, and on the roadmap going forward, I do see a lot of other modules that also other functionality of Workday that we will definitely still adopt.
Sounds good. How did you, with all that, how did you govern the transformation? Because obviously with all these entities that are coming into the organization to try and build this single entity, there will always be challenges around how do you find governance, how do you get the people that are going to be resistant to change to understand and buy into the bigger objective of the organization. How did you govern that?
So what we did was, we had a very strong business case. So what we did was we set up a project steering committee consisting of the MDs of the various regions. And we also, so they were the project steering committee as well as some of the C-suite leaders we have in the business. So we already had leadership buy-in and backing throughout the project, which really helped a lot with actually changing some of the behavior and them adopting the program from very early on.
Yeah.
What we also did was we involved some key influencers in the business. So that was across all the levels. So from junior staff members that might not even have access to computers to some of the very senior leaders in the business. So we involved them in some of the design workshops we had.
Yeah.
So in terms of we need to design a new process, give us some inputs, will this work for you? And then ultimately they were heavily involved in the end-to-end testing, the prototyping. So when it came to the time when we actually rolled it out, we had advocates for Workday already within the various countries, within the various units, and from all levels. So that really helped with the change management piece as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But with all that, surely there would be risks that you had to manage throughout the deployment process. In fact, even prior to the deployment process.
Yes.
Can you maybe talk us through those risks that you were faced with?
Okay, so because the decision was to say we're going to implement in all 27 countries all at once across all staff members, you can just imagine that the maturity of the data that we had to migrate to Workday weren't at the same level in the various countries. And for example, when we deployed Workday, we also deployed what we call a people assist, which was like an HR call center to help employees during this whole change process, where they can actually phone in and get help in terms of how to capture their goals or how to update their details. And at the same time, we also went live with the shared services functionality. So even though our Australia and Asia business has already been making use of shared services, Africa weren't there yet. However, we went live, so we designed all our processes to end in a shared services inbox. So that was some of the risk that we needed to manage. Not all the countries were ready for the change, but we were forced to actually get up to speed very quickly because the processes weren't going to, we're not going to have two different processes. We designed one process and the rest of regions just needed to make it happen, basically.
Yeah. Dean, maybe we can talk about, I don't think you'd be here if there were no benefits. In fact, I don't think we would be able to convince you to join this panel today if there were no benefits. So I'm hoping to hear a bit about the benefits that you derived out of the Workday deployment. Could we maybe just go cover that a little bit?
Yeah, look, I think from a business perspective, we certainly identified significant benefits. We had an outcome, we had a view in mind of what we wanted Workday to do, and to a certain extent, we have been really impressed in terms of the capability. Having said that, I'll give you one practical example. We were struggling prior to implementation of Workday with our performance appraisal system, our in-house performance appraisal system, and we really scratched our heads thinking, how are we going to design a system that's going to be A, user-friendly, B, it's going to impact the culture, and C, you're really going to, from a return on investment perspective, you're really going to be able to quantify that. Along comes Workday, and we partnered with Workday relative to telling them, look, we have a system, we have a view in mind of what we'd prefer or what we'd like Workday to do relative to performance management system. I think between Workday and ourselves, subsequently we have introduced what is called Let's Talk within our business. It's a huge game changer insofar as performance management is concerned, talent retention is concerned, and identifying your high potentials. So that's just one example that Workday has really stepped up, supported our internally designed system relative to high potentials, relative to managing our talent pipeline. So I think from that perspective, we sat back and thought, if they can do that, if Workday has the capability to do that for let's say performance management, then we must explore other options. And we are currently doing that. We are currently in discussions with Workday around a couple of other options that's coming back to aligning to our strategy. And I think that's certainly going to influence our culture. We talk about innovation, we talk about differentiation, and as a global firm and as a global business, in order for you to be relevant in the next 3 to 5 to 15 years, there has to be some game changes, and we're leveraging off Workday now significantly. It's not the silver bullet, I want to say that, and I say that respectfully, but it's what you do and it's how you implement that and how you get Workday, a platform like Workday, to influence your culture and to execute on your strategy.
Maybe just to add on to what Dean just said, I think a major benefit from HR perspective was definitely the capability to get real-time data and real-time feedback to equip our managers to make decisions there and then. Prior to Workday, preparing a monthly people dashboard would probably take us a week to consolidate all the different data points. Now it's a click of a button. Within a few hours, we have the dashboard rolled out. It's real-time data. So even if someone resigned this morning, by this afternoon, they're out of the dashboard, so out of the stats. So that was one major benefit as well. And then on the employee side, I think we've empowered employees to actually be able be able to update their own details without having to go to HR. And for example, we had feedback from one of our technical directors saying, we need to jump so quickly to match our talent to our client requirements. And for the first time, he's able to not only source within his country, but he can source globally within the whole Aurecon to find a specific skill set that he might need for a short duration on his project. So it changed the way we're actually doing business in terms of matching our talent to our client requirements.
I think just to also touch on what Nicola is saying, there's also the functionality relative to the feedback loop. So employees go out and they request feedback from their internal clients, and that all feeds into your performance appraisal at the end of the 12 months, at the end of the financial year. So that places the employee in a position to realize, look, what I'm doing is actually really good and benefiting the business, or maybe I need to improve in certain areas. So that internal client feedback loop is so important, and I think utilizing Workday is a great platform to also extract some of that valuable information, the development information that the employee needs, and I think the business needs.
And everybody loves feedback.
Everyone loves, especially when it's good.
Especially when it's good. I mean, you see it on social media. People post things and they're waiting for the likes. When are they liking? So I'm actually the point you mentioned around the insight that you get out of the system, Nicola. I'm reminded of one of the questions that I always ask when we go to future customers, prospects, people that we're talking to that hopefully there'll be customers in the future, is a simple question is, how many employees are in your organization? It's always interesting. You can be in a boardroom and sit with 6 people and give them a piece of paper. You'll get different numbers.
Correct. And now everyone can sing from the same hymn sheet. One source of truth.
Sounds good, but I think one of the things we're trying to achieve here is obviously there's lessons learned out of the whole thing. What are those golden nuggets that you'd share with people that are aspiring to embark on this journey?
I would say don't underestimate the change management aspect of moving to Workday. We assume all people are tech savvy and will actually play around in Workday, and that people will actually enjoy updating their own details. But it comes with so we also pick it up in their generational gaps. So millennials, they jump at the opportunity to update their own details. But we realize that some of the older staff members, or the ones closer to retirement, if I can rather say that, they actually need a bit more guidance, and because they've been used to HR dealing with that on their behalf for the last 10 years, but now we're actually expecting you to do it. So the change management piece, that is quite important, and I think get a team in place that could help you with the whole design and rollout of Workday, but that will ultimately support you during the hypercare after deployment, and then business as usual. Because as you roll out, you actually pick up on things on how you can actually still improve some of your processes. And it doesn't mean that when you deploy, that's your be-all and end-all, and that's the Workday solution that you're going to have. And especially with Workday, because you have these 2 releases every year with new functionality. So it's a continuous work of actually updating the system, improving on your current processes. So have a team in place that could continuously drive those innovations and developments within the business.
Sounds good.
I just think to Nicola's point as well, a phased-in approach worked for us and worked well for us. Remember, we are scattered across 27 countries. It's a diverse group of people. So what really helped us, and we are still adding on as we go along, is that phased approach. So that piecemeal approach, and if you're brave enough, if you're zealous enough, then you want to go for
Big bang.
Yeah, then be brave. We were cautious, considering the fact that we were dealing with 5 entities, consolidating that information. And then I think the other important aspect is around what you put in is what you're going to get out, relative to the integrity of the data that's sitting in on Workday.
Yeah, this is true. Thank you. I think maybe we can open it to the floor. Are there any questions from the floor that you'd like to ask Dean and Nicola? There's a question.
Thank you. I just want to know, part of the benefits, if your HR people have experienced a benefit in that they are freed up to do more strategic stuff, or that they are now not chasing after pieces of paper and data, is that a benefit of the system?
I would say yes. It's what they also do with the data and in terms of the reporting functionality. But in terms of actually putting some of the power back into the employee and the line manager's hands, we've definitely seen a shift in freeing up HR staff members to focus more on the value add than the admin. So, and I think we also, with the introduction of the shared services and the help, basically the HR help desk that we set up, that also eliminated and freed up a lot of our HR officers and the business partners' day-to-day activities.
So just to add to Nicola's point, I think, well, at least it is my view that the functionality of the traditional HR person is evolving. And it's evolving at a rapid pace because business is evolving. Yeah. And there's a significant demand from our business to say, well, look, HR, you've got to get in line with what's happening with the business. And I said this to you earlier on, Zuko, I think with the greatest respect to us HR professionals, we've got to think broader than just HR. We've got to have that intimate relationship with our clients, with our internal clients, and know your client's business. So one of the things Workday does for us as an organization, for us as an HR team, is that it releases some of that administrative burden. It helps us to focus primarily on what does our client need, and how can we support, how can we enable our clients to execute successfully on that strategy. Nicola spoke earlier on about our shared services team. So our shared services team is an offsite team. They sit in Manila, in the Philippines, and they pick up a lot of the administrative tasks driven by Workday. So that interconnectivity that transcends beyond borders is also quite important. And we have found that Workday enables us to execute on the ground our HR strategies a lot more and our business strategies a lot more effectively and efficiently.
Of course, we haven't even touched mobility. which is
Great.
Oh yeah,
basically being
that's
able to
that's
do
a
that.
big piece as well.
Yeah. Would
Yeah.
you care to comment on that, Dil?
So look, we have already started to dabble with mobility around Workday. We have our mobility team sitting in Melbourne that is really driving this. So you know, it also helps when you have talent that is spread across 27 countries to identify, let's say, a structural engineer or a bridge engineer, as an example, sitting in Hanoi, and you want him to sit in Cape Town or her to move to Cape Town.
Yeah.
So that talent, that the system gives us that capability to identify the talent, to have a look at those talent review scores, to have a look at the feedback that we are getting from business, and we just place a call to the individual. Listen, we have an opportunity here in South Africa, or in Nairobi, or in Auckland. Would you like to join us?
Good.
Hi. I've just recently started working on Workday. I work for Syngenta. I've had previous training with the company in-house. It was great, and I've been working on it for a month. It's been great, but I just wanted to find out if there's support or any crash course, or if a workshop is available where I can attend and I can gain more knowledge on the system's functions, because I use it every day, and I'm the systems administrator, so it would be really nice if there was something as such available to help me. Or I'm sure there's plenty of other people who've been thrown into the deep end with Workday. It's great, but there's so many functions. There's so much that can be done on the system. It's fantastic, but I just wish I had more help, more guidance.
Okay. All right, I'll cover that. There's maybe the easy way to covering this is maybe you can visit our stand and chat to some of the guys that are there. But what we're also trying to do, last week we launched the very first user group for Workday in South Africa. So what people don't realize is that there are a number of companies that are using Workday in South Africa. So there's over 250 customers of Workday in South Africa. These are global entities. And there's currently 3 companies that are headquartered in South Africa using Workday. So what we're trying to do by having the user group is to create that platform where you can have those conversations within the user group. That's one avenue. The other avenue is that Workday, the way it was built to be super intuitive. I think in your 1 month experience with Workday, you can agree with me on this. It was inspired by consumer technology, the same way that you use Netflix or Facebook or all the social media platforms. So in terms of how you can try and gain knowledge around that, you can speak to one of the members on my team. In fact, Michelle is here. Michelle, can you just give more insight on that?
Yes, of course. Just to properly answer the question immediately how we can help you. Have you heard of Workday Online Community? Okay. I'd like to give that buzzword, search for Workday Online Community. Please do visit the stand. What you need to do as a system administrator is get yourself onto the Workday Online Community. It is the platform. We've got 70,000 Workday users on there. Okay, so out of the 256 international companies with a presence here, you will get help. I'm on there. I'm your customer success manager here in South Africa. So I would like to close that gap for you, okay? On community, we've got little just-in-time training as well. Obviously, it's not within the configuration of your business process, but the functionality demand that you have is there. And of course, you've got a whole, the user group that Zuko had alluded to, where we can engage just on the Africa regional user group, localization requirements, etc., like that. And then from a training perspective, so if you're hungry for that information, there's look for core concepts in the community, and that's sort of your online on-demand training, which is available to every single community user. But I'd like to speak to you when you come there. Thank you.
I think it comes around to, I think something you said, Nicola, around the change management process. And I guess my question is around, what was the actual driving force behind this? I understand you had 5 separate systems and you're trying to integrate all of this, but who drove the process? Was it driven from a C-suite level, or was it more HR and that filtered through the organization?
Well, it's difficult to actually answer that question because our whole, even though HR was the majority was the majority of the project team members, we actually wanted the business to own Workday because they will ultimately be the end users, and we wanted them to design the Workday processes to actually align with what they're trying to achieve. We had a dedicated change manager that helped throughout this whole change program, and the whole campaign was about Hello Workday. So say goodbye to inefficiencies, say goodbye to your legacy system, say goodbye to not having data at the fingertips, to hello to all these new innovations and what can actually drive it. So I think it's a combination. It's a combination from having leadership buy-in, having HR team members there to actually drive some of the discussions and own some of the processes, as ultimately we're some of the SMEs in the project. But then getting stakeholders from the business, getting someone from payroll in, getting a driver in, getting someone from a unit leader in to actually help with those decision making, to design a system that could actually be owned by the project or by the business themselves.
I think ultimately what we wanted to achieve is a shift in culture. It's a shift in thinking. And historically, the thinking was, well, all right, if I need a report as a line manager, I'll drop HR an email and I'll extract that information. And what we are saying is, hey, hang on, I think there's a lot more that the system can offer. There's a lot more that HR can offer. And Mr. Line Manager, I think you will be empowered to access the reports that are necessary for you, or access the information that are necessary for you. So what it also does is it also strengthens that relationship between the employee and his or her line manager, because it forces them to engage. It forces them to engage as opposed to saying, well, all right, I'll get the information from the HR team. And we want to, and that was one of our intentions, to kind of shift the thinking that HR is not your HR administrative personnel in the good old days, where you can go to them and they will give you information. We want to shift that thinking. We want to also shift the thinking around spoon feeding the business. In terms of information that they require, leave, and so on and so forth. The system is there, it's user-friendly, play around with it, you're going to find the information in time.
And it's not only about accessing the information, it's also taking action.
Correct.
It's what you do with that
Real
information.
time as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, just a quick question around building the business case for your HR transformation project. Obviously, there's very few organisations that are throwing money for no good return. So how did you calculate that? What was the kind of things like your payback period on the project?
So that's quite a complex question to ask, because there's various elements that form part of the business case. Ultimately, we could write off certain costs over the next 4 years as they will actually eventualize within the business. When we build the business case, we make use of a lot of internal resources. I think Workday is the one platform where you don't necessarily need experts. Yes, you need experts to come and help you with the design decisions, but ultimately there's a knowledge transfer and skills transfer that take place to your internal resources. So in the process, they become upskilled and they can actually move the business forward and manage those BAU tasks. So I think when we presented the initial business case for approval, I think the benefits that we're going to derive, that played a huge impact in the decision. Ultimately, the risks of actually keeping the 5 legacy systems weren't even an option. And then we drove down costs by making use of a lot of internal resources. And the cost that we had to spend in terms of sending staff members for training and some of the software licensing costs, the tenants that we had to buy, we wrote that off over a couple of years. So the impact wasn't in one financial year.
Yeah, I think Workday provides that flexibility, and I think it's certainly for us, for Aurecon, it's certainly been a huge benefit. It's been, I think, to the question that you asked, relative to how do you quantify this, and I think we'll be able to truly appreciate the true extent of the return on investment as we journey along. So we are quite comfortable where we are right now with Workday, and I think we are certainly looking at a few more modules in the next 18 to 24 months that we are going to bring on board. It's made a huge difference insofar as coming back to that strategic intent that I spoke on earlier on. Because when I look at it, it all goes back to, you've got to be relevant as an organization. You've got to ensure that your people within your business are relevant. And this is one of the ways which it contributes towards that relevance in the times that we are in at the moment.
Maybe just to add on the value topic, there's as Workday, we do get involved in that value exercise. When you're working on the business case, there are areas where we can tell you upfront, this is where you're going to get a return on your investment. We can go, it can be any of the inefficiencies. And what we do when you are live, when you're in production, we revisit and have that conversation again to check that what we had discussed, because this is something that you presented to the board as your expected value out of Workday, we revisit that and take a check again to see if it's as 9 out of 10 times it's actually bigger than what we had put in the business case initially.
Yeah, maybe just a last comment from my side. So I've been I was part of the deployment in Aurecon in 2015, and I was heavily involved in Workday deployments in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah.
But I think the whole deployment and working with Workday and the consultants in Workday and the community and the user group and the support that we receive from Workday has been really memorable. All the interactions, and I was always just proud to be able to be the face of Workday in our company, because the feedback that we receive from employees and line managers have always been quite overwhelming, positive.